I'm just not good at that. That sentence has ended more potential than any test score ever will. The most dangerous part is an adult probably agreed. Not to be cruel, but because they thought they were being honest or nice. Today, I want to show you why identity, not intelligence, not talent, not even effort, is the single most important factor in your child's future, and why most well-meaning adults are accidentally installing ceilings kids can't even see. We think children discover who they are, but they don't. They decide who they are, and most of the time they decide based on what they watch, not what they're told. See, what they see gets repeated. A father who gets angry when things don't go his way. A mother who shrinks when she's challenged. A parent who pushes people away when they feel threatened. The child watches it and they file it away. Now, at some point, usually without knowing, they try it on. Not because they want to be that person, but because that's the software that was running in the household. And children don't install software consciously. They absorb it, download it, and then run it in the background. Here's what most people miss. Effort follows identity, not the other way around. If a child believes I'm bad at math, they won't try hard at math. Not because they're lazy, but because trying is a threat. If they fail again, it confirms the identity. And if they succeed, it creates internal conflict. So the brain does what the brain does. It protects the story it already believes. And this isn't a character flaw, it's identity protection. And identity protection is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. We call it the ego. It's not just in kids, it's in all of us. Here's a reframe that changes everything. Identity isn't personality. Identity is software. And the part that nobody talks about is that most of that software running in your child right now wasn't written for them. It was written for someone else in a different decade, under different pressures, and it got passed down the way bad furniture gets passed down. Not because it fits, but because it was just always there. Children are running mental operating systems built for what they observed, absorbed, and rehearsed before they were old enough to choose. So the right question isn't, who is my child? The right question is, what is currently installed and where did it come from? Because whatever is installed determines what they avoid, what they attempt, what they believe they're allowed to want, what rooms they feel worthy of walking into. Their identity is a permission structure. And most of us are living inside of permissions we never consciously agreed to. Talent is overrated. And I don't mean that as a motivational slogan. I mean the research is pretty clear. Identity outperforms ability when the pressure is on. So you're going to hire the best tutor, put them in the best school, give them every advantage. But if their identity says, I'm not that kind of person, they will quietly, unconsciously work against every opportunity you create. And now the opposite is also true. A child who believes I figure things out, or I believes I learn fast, or believes I grow when things get hard, will outperform a more naturally gifted child with a fixed identity. And that's because identity determines what they're willing to try. And what they try determines what they build, and what they build determines who they become. Talent without the right identity is potential that never gets activated. I want to tell you about a client. I'm not going to use his name, but in our early sessions together, he described his father and their relationship. An angry man, he said. Successful in some ways, but whenever things got hard, whenever people got too close or deals fell through, he pushed them away. His anger was the wall. And my client watched that for years and filed it away. Fast forward 30 years, he's sitting across from me describing his business, deals falling through and opportunities disappearing. And the phrase he kept using was running away. Everything was running away from him. So I asked him, how does that make you feel? He didn't hesitate. Angry, he said. And in that moment, I saw it. He wasn't describing his business. He was describing his father in that same anger, the same push, the same people leaving. 30 years later, just in different contexts with different stakes. But the same 13-year-old software was still running in the background. Now that moment changed something in me because this man wasn't lacking ability and he wasn't lacking opportunity. He was lacking an upgrade he never knew he needed. And I kept thinking, what if someone had caught this when he was 14? What if instead of absorbing his father's model as the only way to respond to pressure, someone had shown him another way? And that's why we started working with kids and families. Because the earlier you upgrade the identity, the less you spend the rest of your life uninstalling software you didn't choose. And what we've learned in this first year is something that doesn't show up on report cards. The kids who transform fastest aren't always the most talented. They're the ones who catch themselves mid-thought. And instead of thinking, I can't do this, they think, I haven't done this yet. Now that shift isn't accidental, it's trained. And the most powerful thing you can give a child is a belief so strong, it becomes a skill set for them. That's the difference between a child who caps out and a child who compounds over time. By the time most people are 25, their identity feels permanent, not because it is, but because it's been rehearsed for many years. My client was in his 40s before he saw the loop. 40 years of a 13-year-old software making decisions for a grown man. Now imagine catching that at 13 instead. Imagine a child who grows up knowing that I can adapt, I build, I handle hard things. I don't have to run my father or my mother's program. That child's not going to avoid pressure, they're going to move through it. They're not going to push people away, they're going to learn to pull them in. And in a world changing as fast as ours is, adaptability is worth more than intelligence. And a child who upgrades will always outlast a child who coasts on talent. If you want to future-proof your child, stop asking, what are they good at? Start asking, what do they believe about themselves? Because that belief will quietly determine every room they walk into, every risk they take or don't take, and every ceiling they accept or refuse. Upgrade the identity, the performance will follow. If this video shifted something for you, please share it with a friend or another parent who needs to hear it, because the earlier that this conversation starts, the earlier a child gets their upgrade. And if you want more content like this video and subscribe for more.